Hello there. So, someone in my comments asked me to do a video on how to do combat. Very good question, my good survivor. This game has a steep learning curve with combat, especially when an innocent mistake can mean death. There are a few small mistakes that are common for new players to make that can have big impacts on your playthrough. This video will be split between key strategies that you need to know when fighting and tips on combat. Let us begin. If you're here, you've probably been munched a few times and realized that combat in Project Zomboid is a bit more complex than you think. The tutorial will cover all the basic mechanics for you to get started, but that still doesn't quite equip you for your first few steps in Project Zomboid. We're going to dive a little deeper to help you get more comfortable with combat. Project Zomboid is focused on hyper-realism, designed to simulate what life would be like if you were actually surviving a zombie outbreak. As such, strategy is a big part of this game, and knowing when and where to engage is crucial to your survival. If you're new to the game, it's tempting to head straight out and start going to town on your fellow neighbors, but that's a one-way ticket to the death screen, as you've no doubt found out. A general rule of thumb, with a basic, and I mean basic weapon, like the rolling pin or frying pan, you can at most manage 4 zombies at a time. As you get more experience, become comfortable with combat, and have better gear, this number will grow. A single zombie isn't much of a threat, but when they're in a group, all riled up and angry, all it takes is one missed swing or a movement error and you'll be swarmed. Something that will help you be more prepared for your encounters is to understand how zombie aggro actually works. Zombies in Project Zomboid have unusually keen senses of hearing and sight. Evidently, all of them take their multivitamins every day. Much like your character has a cone of vision, so do the zombies. This is important to know, as once you step into their line of sight, they will start scampering towards you and will keep going until you break their line of sight long enough for you to get away. When you break their line of sight, the zombies will go to the last location where they saw you. Lowering your profile by crouching will make it more difficult for them to spot you, but you will also move slower this way. When getting away from a group that you don't want to fight, moving through a building and out through the other side will cause zombies to start mauling at the doors and windows of the building, because that's where they last saw you, allowing you some time to get away and leave them to their devices. The same can be done by losing them through a tree line, allowing you to either break up the group to make it easier to fight, or lose them completely. Noise is a factor in Project Zomboid, but unless you're going around firing shotgun shells everywhere or driving a car, it has less of an impact on zombie aggro out in the open than sight does. Sound does, however, have a bigger impact when you are indoors, as it is amplified, so make sure to consider your actions so you don't draw unwanted attention. Now, sight aggro can be used to your advantage. When you stumble across a group that looks a little too chunky to fight, you can slowly step towards it to try and aggro a few zombies towards you so you can deal with them. This way, you can slowly break up a horde into manageable bite-sized chunks. A bit more advanced, but as you get more comfortable and creative with horde management, you can use noise to your advantage to lure large groups away from locations that you want to loot. Some examples include the use of alarms and more. Be warned though, this should only be attempted once you're more comfortable with moving around and general combat, as you can quite easily draw unwanted Zeds by mistake from other locations. A good habit to get into, and I cannot stress this enough, is to practice situational awareness when you're out doing your runs. Get used to doing 360-degree turns to make sure nothing is sneaking up behind you. The true threat in this game is not the Zeds in front of you, but the one that sneaks up behind you and munches on your shoulder. If you are unfamiliar with the location you're in, trying to escape from conflict can easily have you run into even more zombies. Try and scout the locations as much as you can to learn the layout of the area before going in, so you have an escape plan if things get hairy, which they will most of the time. Knowing when and where to fight is an important skill. Overconfidence and greed are a straight ticket to your run ending, so do not feel bad about taking your time. The sooner you learn to take things slower, the better. Your survival is important, so be careful not to put yourself in unnecessarily difficult situations. You can always come back to an area later when you are more prepared. Sometimes, it's more trouble than it's worth to engage a group when you can avoid them, as a prolonged engagement can result in you getting tired and inevitably swarmed. Now that we've gone over some of the fundamental strategies you should use, let's take a look at some points you should know when engaging in combat. Learn how to aim. Just like guns, even your melee weapons need to be aimed. Holding right click will show the aiming cursor, but that's not actually aiming. When swinging your melee weapon, if the zombie is standing up, make sure it's just behind the zombie so you can land your hits correctly. If you've made the zombie kiss some dirt, You can hover the circle over their head to land a headshot, which can result in an instant kill if done correctly. If this is your first few playthroughs, make sure multi-hit is turned on, as well as setting the aim outline to any weapon to make combat a little easier. How you swing your weapon matters. If you swing your weapon while being too close to a zombie, you will trigger a push attack, which doesn't do any damage but does disrupt them a little bit. Just like in real life, hitting a zombie with the blade of an axe is far more effective than hitting them with the shaft. The best way is to try and keep as much distance between you and the zombies while whittling them down, and this can be done with the walk back shove method, which most players use to make engagements with multiple zombies a bit easier. Just be careful to check behind you while you're doing so you don't stumble into another zombie. When you've downed a zombie, be sure to attack their head or chest with either a stomp or a melee attack. If you whack their legs, you will cripple them, turning them into a crawler. While not dangerous on their own, in a group fight, that very same crawler can grab your legs and you'll end up as one yourself. As the Project Zomboid Bible states, guns in the early game are a death sentence because you won't have the ammo or the skills to be effective with them. So try to prioritize melee weapons over firearms where you can. Guns are a surefire way of attracting a crowd because of how much noise they generate, and therefore are a last resort, unless you're loaded with ammo and have the skills to take down a horde. Melee weapons are much quieter and allow you to manage hordes better, especially in the beginning. Heavier weapons, like two-handed blunt weapons, will consume more stamina than lighter ones, like one-handed weapons, at the trade-off of more damage. Be mindful of which one you choose to take in a fight, especially if it is a prolonged one with a large group, as you don't want to get tired halfway through. Something to keep in mind is that two-handed weapons wielded in one hand will be less effective. It's an easy thing to miss when you're panicking during conflict and you accidentally equipped it in a one-handed slot. That's it for some of my tips on how to get better at combat. If I've missed anything, please share your tips in the comments below. We are all about helping new players as well as more seasoned ones get better at this incredible game. If you liked the video, consider leaving a like and subscribing. It helps more than you think. Good luck out there, Survivor.